would request this session to be an interaction session. So if there's anyone who would like to ask me a bunch of questions along with it, you're more than welcome, right? Now, from what, if we may start, can I please ask the group, how many of us here today, among the 30 that we are law students, and how many of us are law practitioners? If people can and please make sure that you unmute and speak, please.
Law student.
Law student, ma'am.
Divyanshi, that's Shivam, that's
Law student.
I'm law student.
Shana. All right. And also, I'm sorry, Pars, I'm kind of overriding this one, but also you can please be happy to switch on your videos, even if you're sitting at home on Sunday, because I had to put on a kurta for this year. So it doesn't matter whether you're sitting till the time that you are listening to me talk and you are studying, it is fine in whichever scenario you are. So no judgments on that whatsoever. Okay, do we have practicing lawyers? Sakshi Kumari is also a law student. Do we have practicing lawyers also among us? You have a social worker, Rishikesh, right? Perfect. And do we have fifth-year students, or do we have third-year students? Do we have people who have assistant professor, that is Ravindrajit, right, Professor sir? Oh, very nice to have you here. So we have a diversity of people that are working with us here. All right, fantastic. Now, when I was speaking to Sakshi,
I am first year student.
pardon me, Shivam, you said something. I'm sorry, I missed that.
First year student, I am.
Oh, that's very, very good. Welcome to the law life, man. You have to be studying for the rest of your life. All right, so the diversity of this group is absolutely beautiful, and that is why I will encapsulate the whole system or the whole understanding of the PoSH Act in itself. Being said again, I would prefer that this is an interactive session, even despite the fact that I have 45 minutes and I'm only supposed to cover the compliance aspect of it. Now, is there a reason why the Sexual Harassment of Women at the Workplace Act came around? Does anybody have an answer to that? Was it a violation of our fundamental rights? Because yes, it was. We came around because the fundamental rights of women to equality under the Article 14 and 15 talked about right to life and living with dignity, along with Article 21, which talked about having a practice area or a profession or an occupation where it's a safe environment bereft of sexual harassment. Now, going on to it further, do you think that the sexual harassment laws only has a definition of aggrieved women or aggrieved persons? That's a question for the group. Do only we have aggrieved women or aggrieved persons as well?
Aggrieved persons as well.
I wish we did, Kapil. I wish we did. But at this point
As
of
per
time,
act, it is only women.
yes, unfortunately. And as of this point of time, unfortunately, it is only aggrieved women. But we true hope that in the future, and especially after the decriminalization of 377, that it also includes aggrieved persons. So that's forward thinking. And thank you very much for that response. Now, how do we understand the concept of workplace? Now, the workplace can be a domestic workplace. It can be the workplace that we're working at. It can be a person who's visiting your workplace. And yes, I have somebody who wants to ask a question. Yes, Shivam, carry on. Ask me, please. All right, I'll keep continuing, and we will take questions in the last 20 minutes because we don't want to like waste everyone's time here. So now, of course, as far as workplace is concerned, we come within the diaphragm of departments, organizations, undertakings, establishments, private sector organizations, hospital, nursing homes, sports institutions, stadiums, employees that are visiting other places during their course of employment or their job profile. But what I was here primarily to cover is the compliance under sexual harassment. And as we understand, sexual harassment committees are supposed to be either the internal complaints committee or the LCC. Now, if there is anyone who could let me know about why do we need an ICC and when is it okay not to have an ICC and have an LCC? What is the applicability of it? And turn off your mics and talk to me, man. It's okay. Turn off your mics, talk to me.
Ma'am, the institution or the workplace that consists of more than 10 or more than 10 employers that must have an internal complaint committee. However, if there are not 10 employers in that particular workplace, that must have a local complaints committee that must be looked after by the district magistrate, I guess, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's a perfectly fine answer, Parisha. Thank you so much for that. But does the organization that is of under or over 10 employees, what happens if it's in like the entire organization of 10 people is 9 men and 1 woman? How does it work then?
In case of the complaint is against the employer, then it has to go to the LCC.
Perfect. So then we say that the LCC has a jurisdiction for it. Now, for example, my organization is all women or diversity inclusive people. So do I need to have an ICC?
Yes, it has to.
And why is that? Krishna?
Even sexual harassment against another woman can also be considered as a sexual harassment only.
Thank you very
So
much.
sorry for my wordings, but it is.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much for your answer. That works even better. So now we've established the applicability of the law, right? Now, when we have a complaint of sexual harassment, do we have a timeline for that, which is guarding us? Do we have a limitation, or do we have a limitation to a sexual harassment complaint?
I think it is
We do.
3 months.
3 months of what? 3 months from the day we feel sexually harassed?
3 months from the date of occurrence, or if it is a series of the incidents, then it 3 months from the last incident.
Fair enough. And do we have a section that complies with that?
If I'm not wrong, it is section 9.
Section 9. Yes. So now if there is a sexual harassment complaint, then yes, it of course has to be reported within 3 months of the incident or 3 months of the last incident that is reported. Now, we know that there is no concept of negotiation as far as this complaint is concerned, but we do have a provision of conciliation. Now, in our provision of conciliation, are we talking about conciliation means what? I mean, you give me 10 lakhs, I will keep my mouth shut.
In a conciliation, there should not be any monetary in return, means monetary compromise should not be there.
Agreed. There has to be absolutely no monetary settlement as far as the conciliation is concerned. And if there is an understanding of conciliation that has been going on between the two parties, the same has to be recorded by the IC committee during the inquiry proceedings, and the findings have to be shared by both parties. Right? Now, at the start of it, now I have a complaint, and yes, we've already established that it is 3 months from the incident, or 3 months of the last course of incident. How do we file a complaint? I am the aggrieved woman, unfortunately, that's all it says. I'm the aggrieved woman. I am here and I want to file a complaint, but I'm mentally harassed about it and I can't file a complaint. How do I file it then?
I guess the legal ears can also file the complaint on her behalf.
It is going to be either my relatives, my friends, my psychologist, my psychiatrist, or a co-worker who can file the complaint. Now, okay, this is a question for all of you. Now, if there is somebody who, despite being the aggrieved woman, has felt uncomfortable around the situation in the workplace and wants to file a complaint, is that third party allowed to file a complaint?
Yes, ma'am. Maybe.
I get a response from Dr. Rabindrajit Kaur. Yes. Yes, he or she can. If you're working in a workplace and you're a third party spectator to it, and if you're not feeling comfortable in the scenario that you are working in and you have to file a complaint, yes, you can absolutely go ahead and file a complaint before the ICC. Now, coming down to inquiry, right? Just a question for on the previous topic. What if there is a disgruntled employee or an aggrieved woman who dies and she still has a sexual harassment claim and she has gone through XYZ reasons and unfortunately at this point of time is no more? Can you file a complaint in the organization on behalf of a deceased individual?
Yes, along with the CRPC also, we can file a PoSH complaint.
Yeah. And who can?
Any legal hire or any co-worker, anyone.
No, any legal heir.
Friend.
Any legal heir can, and if it is not a legal heir, then if there is a co-worker who has a written consent,
Yes.
then you can go ahead and file a complaint against it. Krishna, you should come and work for me, ma'am. What is this? I live and earn by this law, ma'am. All right, so now we're dealing with compliances. What if we have a malicious complaint? What do we do
I
about it?
guess we do have the provision of malicious prosecution under torts, so the case can be filed.
Torts is not something that works with the Indian law, but Section 14 does. Right? So if we have a malicious complaint, then, and if the committee or the inquiry committee comes around to the agreement of the fact or arrives at the conclusion that it is a malicious complaint, the individual is going to be suffering consequences that are in term or in of their entire employment agreement. Okay. Do we have compensations in PoSH Act?
No.
Yes, they do. What does the compensation include of? Or how do we compute it? If we are looking at a monetary compensation for a sexual harassment complaint, we will have to take into account the mental trauma, pain, and suffering of the lady, the loss in career opportunity, and the medical expenses, and the income and the financial status of the respondent. Because during conversation and negotiation of this entire concept, we have the ability of giving the aggrieved woman a leave of 3 months of absence. But in the employment laws, it's not clear whether it is going to be paid or unpaid. So that is a question, that is an open-ended question as far as PoSH Act is concerned. Are we good to move on to the compliances?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just have 2 or 3 of your bachas. Yeah, come on, what's wrong with you? Could you please explain the consequences of a malicious act once more? All right. May I go back to that? Shraddha, thank you for your question. Now, see, if there is a malicious complaint that has been filed against a person, then the repercussions of that is that, one, in the civil course of action, because it is an official document, on the civil end, we get into defamation. Right. Now, defamation can be criminal as well as civil, and that is going to include the goodwill of the individual as well. Now, beyond that, as far as the PoSH Act is concerned, it can lead to repercussions of the individual who has filed the complaint. And it is going to have a very strong effect on the determination of compensation, because at this point of time, we're not going to only be talking about determination of compensation, but we are going to be talking about the losses incurred by the individual against whom this entire complaint has been formed. I hope that answers your question, Shraddha. Are we good to move on?
Yes, ma'am.
How many individuals do we need to have in the IC committee?
A minimum of 4.
With a majority of 1/3 being women?
Half of them should be women, I guess.
Yes.
And what is the tenure of any IC or ICC member being a member?
I think it is 3 years.
Perfect. And how much do we get paid for that? You have to tell me this one. Please.
It is very nominal, I think.
It is 3 vada pav. It is 250 rupees.
Right.
Right? Plus traveling expenses.
Very
So,
right, ma'am.
yeah. So it is extremely nominal. Even if it is the LCC or the ICC, there is nothing monetarily beneficial in being a chairperson in either of these scenarios. Now, Shivam asks, is there any prevention act for man during sexual harassment? Plenty, beta, jail जा सकते हो, नौकरी जा सकती है. On both end, very drastic measures. Okay, now what is the duty of an organization? If I was organization X, what are my compliances that I have to go under? One, primarily that we've learned, we need to have an ICC. 2, we need to have a sexual harassment policy, which is available to all of our employees, third party or otherwise, and has to be readily available on our intranet. Third would be that the members of the ICC have to be displayed at a conspicuous place within the organization, and mostly we say that it has to be around, well, you know, that the board which comes around what are they called? The conference rooms or the lunch houses. The main room or the main conspicuous place in itself means available to everyone. So even if you have the name of the ICC slapped after, your washrooms, it is in compliance. Do we have any questions so far?
Ma'am, after 3 years, can ICC member can be reappointed?
Yes, absolutely. There is no law against it.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kapil. Now, what's the penalty of being found non-compliant? It's a very minimal penalty of being found non-compliant, and which is 50,000 rupees. Oh, yes. Fazrul, if I've got the name right. Could I have your question? No, that yes, yes, it is. Well, actually, it's section 26 and $50,000. So yes, you're partly correct on that end. But when we are starting an inquiry, if you're talking about compliance, and that is what we have to, what I have to basically cover for you guys is now today dated 1st of July or say 1st of February, I am going to file a complaint. I file a complaint, maybe with the help of my relative, my co-worker, my psychologist, XYZ, but I file a complaint either from 3 months of the incident or 3 months of the last incident. That we have covered. Now, what happens when I file a complaint? Once I file a complaint, then the ICC has to be formed and it comes into action. Once it comes into action, the second step of it is that the whole inquiry has to run on the principle of natural justice. In any court of law, labor or otherwise, if the inquiry is not held on the section on the concept of natural justice, it is not going to hold up. We file a complaint, the inquiry committee is put into action. What does the inquiry committee do the minute you receive a complaint? 1 second for the answer here, and I'll continue beyond that. Once the complaint has been given to the IC committee, they have a responsibility of giving a copy of the same to the victim or the aggrieved woman. Now, the aggrieved woman has 7 days to give her response along with all supporting documents in fixtures of 3. If there's anyone who's been in court, everyone understands that there is 1 copy for the defendant, there is 1 copy for the judge, and there is 1 copy for ourselves. So in copies of 3 or 6, the aggrieved person or the victim at this point of time has to give a response to the inquiry committee within, because the entire inquiry has to be completed within 90 days. Now, is there an exception for the aggrieved woman if she's not able to file a complaint within 90 days of the last date of incident? Yes. But those are in very minimal cases, and that depends on the veracity or on the best interest of the individual at that point of time and as per the discretion of the IC. So now we have 90 days to complete this investigation. We get a complaint. Within 7 days, we have to file the response to the complaint. Now we give it to the complainant. The complainant files its response within 10 days of receipt of the complaint. And then how do we further on? Do we have to share a copy of the complainant's response and all the documents that he gives with the aggrieved woman? Simple question. Do we need to give the aggrieved women a copy of the complainant's response? Yes. Why? Because as far as the Act is concerned, the IC or the LCC has the same rights as the civil court. So since we are adhering to the concept of natural justice, we will have to provide all the copies of the response of the victim, along with all the evidence that she has attached to it, to the complainant. Do we have any questions so far? If there is a false complaint, all right, now, Razuri, you'll have to come back to me on that one because I will be responding to the questions one at a time. Good evening. Hi. All right. What if it's a false complaint? Now, if it's a false complaint, then when the 90-day period kicks in and an individual gets on to actually investigating, when the IC gets on to investigating the entire process, when we realize that it's a false complaint, then the labor laws kick in. And in principles of natural justice, following that process, we inquire into the complaint, which is false, and we see that it is made out of malicious thinking or understanding, and the individual who has filed such a complaint faces the consequences of such, as which would be either termination, either transfer of their destination from one to the other, or would be sent on a leave for the next 60 days so that they can take 90 days to understand how exactly it has been a false complaint. Now we're getting, actually, I see you, Sharon. Just give me 1 minute. Good evening, ma'am. What are the provisions if a person has committed suicide after being falsely accused of sexual harassment? Oh, will be considered under 306 of the IPC? Yes. If someone wants to withdraw a complaint after 1.5 months of inquiry, then they will face consequences. It can't, okay. Let me get to the first part of your question, Medhansh. If I haven't got your name wrong, I'm really sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. If an individual unfortunately commits suicide following a complaint in the workplace regarding sexual harassment, then, and if the inquiry ultimately states that it was a malicious complaint, then they will probably not be charged under 306. But if it is proven that it was a matter of sexual harassment, then of course you cannot prosecute a man who cannot be prosecuted anymore. So that is, so 306 would not stand against nobody against state. But if it is a question, then yes, of course, the state will pick it up. If someone wants to withdraw her complaint after 1.5 months of inquiry, then yes, she can. Yes, she can. And how this can be done is that she gives a written understanding to the committee about why she is withdrawing her complaint. a copy of that understanding has to be given to the respondent. And if they have any objections to it, they can definitely raise it. In practicality, for as long as I've practiced, is it a good thing to do? Is it an understandable thing to do? No, it's not, because it presents you to be a person who is creating, a haphazard situation out of everything, and has put into an entire, has started an entire system of inquiry without realizing that there are consequences and resources that are being pulled into it. Now, okay, now Shivam says, why women use sexual harassment as protection guard and women in their own faulty conditions? Why, I don't know, Shivam. Do they? Yes. In my practice, I'll be killed for saying this, but in my practice, 70% of the times, sexual harassment complaints come out of consensual relationships that have gone sour. So you're suddenly seeing each other, and then you're not, and then one individual gets very angry with the other one. Is it a backthrow of something that because it is goodwill of the masses? Why? See, the government was proactive after Vishakha. It came out with the laws in 2013. Last year, we celebrated 10 years of the Sexual Harassment Act that came around. It takes a while for any act to develop. What you have to understand in a holistic way is that even despite the fact that sexual harassment laws came around, 377 got decriminalized after that. So the entire concept of harassment of an individual at a workplace got defined in many different ways than what it basically is at this point of time. Right? And as Shivan asks, where is woman wrong? She uses her. I understand that a complaint can be wrong. I understand that an understanding can be wrong. I understand that this whole law is based on, perception as for intent. But what we have to understand is that we have to give some faith to the system, because in that 90-day inquiry that takes place, there are people who are there who are objective at all senses. And despite the fact that we do understand that most of the welfare beneficial legislations are more misused than used, there are still people out there who can add objectivity to it when it is put under a system of inquiry. I love this. Thank you so much for your questions. This is beautiful. फजू सर क्या कर सकते हैं यार? The government is not slow. The government makes a provision, and the systems adapting around it are slightly slow. Because abhi tak to, we're still talking about companies who don't even believe in being compliant. Is it possible there is sexual harassment with man by a woman? Yes, my dear. Shivam, most of the companies that I opine with are international organizations, and at this point of time, what we call the Sexual Harassment Committee to be as is a gender neutral committee, and that is why my opening question, do we have aggrieved woman defined in it, or do we have an aggrieved person defined in it? But because we have an aggrieved woman defined in it, even at this point of time, if you have to look at the LGBTQ community, there are many of them who who recognize themselves as women. So at this point of time, yes, our sexual harassment laws are a step behind in the whole concept of only a woman can be harassed by a man. But in reality, are there situations where a woman gets harassed by a woman, or a man gets harassed by a man, or a man gets harassed by a woman? Yes, it is. And that is why we always put in, or at least I suggest to my clients, that there is a caveat that puts in and makes this policy a general neutral policy. I can feel a lot of questions coming my way. All right. Now that is Shraddha, ma'am, aren't the provisions of PoSH stringent enough because the Act is not properly complied with all? There still exists many companies which haven't considered. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what we were talking about. There are too many companies that have not yet complied with the PoSH Act because, unfortunately, it's only 50,000 rupees for non-compliance. And for anyone who converts it in dollars, it's just way too many less dollars to be punished for. And we're not taking it as stringently and as possible. But the thing is that most of these cases are now entering up into a criminal domain. And when they enter into a criminal domain, the entire sanctity of an institution gets into play. So yes, is 50 grams too less? No. But in the veracity of the organizations that we are talking about, we have to keep in mind that there are some organizations that are maybe 10, 12, 30 people, and then there are other organizations that are more than 3,000 or 30,000 people. So to be fair on that end, at the start of the introduction of a law like this, one has to be acceptable and doable, if that being said. What are the rights of a man when he suffers from sexual harassment? Oh boy, you need to intern with me, Shivam. If the organization, okay, I'm going to make it very brief. If the organization has a gender neutral policy, then the man who has been sexually harassed has exactly the same rights as a woman being sexually harassed. Is there a loophole in PoSH Act? In every section. Shraddha, in every section. Why there's no provision of anonymous complaint? Because sometimes women feel fear and shame. There is always a provision of anonymous complaints. So, most of the complaints that come around are actually anonymous. There is no provision that has to be made of anonymous complaints. It is a right at the workplace to be raising your voice against not having a comfortable scenario to be worked at. And that is why when we are talking about the sexual harassment complaint and how it can be filed, that is why it says by a relative, by a co-worker, by the whole concept of it is making it a comfortable, respectful work environment. Your name doesn't have to be popped up into anything. And being anonymous is a choice that you can make from the day one of it, despite the fact whether you're a friend or the complainant or the victim or the victim's friend or the victim's legal heir or their co-worker. Anonymous is a right given from the first go. So had it or should it be a provision? No. It's a given as far as this law is concerned. May I move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if you're looking at the last length of compliances that are concerned here, that every organization is supposed to have well, a PoSH policy, as we call it. How smart is the PoSH policy is something that comes into practice, and it's not something that we can say all around. But yes, that we have to have a PoSH policy, which is for sexual harassment against women at the workplace. You have to have a notice about, the IC members that are available at a conspicuous space. You need to put it up on your intranet. You need to have an annual gender sensitization training for your white collar and your blue collar employees. There has to be a separate set of training for your IC members so that they're compliant with the rules of the PoSH Act. And along with that, one has to annually submit a report to the district court, basically updating them about the trainings that you've had, the complaints that you've received in a year, and how one has dealt with it. Now, all in all, in the 17 pages or the 23 pages of the PoSH Act, this is what PoSH is. But I have been practicing it for about 12 years now. And now you can ask me questions about the loopholes, because the compliance, as you know, compliances we cover in 45 minutes of anything. Why are people not compliant in that act altogether? God knows. I don't know, but if I might ask Paras, is Paras still here? Paras from Legal With It?
Yes, Manju, thank you so much.
Yeah, hi Paras. I do have a couple of questions that are coming up in the feed. Now, please let me know if I have the time to answer it, or
Yeah, ma'am. I will read the questions, ma'am.
pardon me?
Yeah, I will read the questions.
All right, great. Now we have Rishikesh. Now, ma'am, as you mentioned, there are
There
many.
are many loopholes in the PoSH Act. Can
Yeah.
we have 2 to 3 examples, please?
Oh, yeah. First, you start with aggrieved woman and aggrieved person. Who is the aggrieved woman and who is an aggrieved person? Now, after the decriminalization of 377, I could be a transgender person and identify as a woman and still apply for it. 2 is the limitation on it. 3 months from the last term of act. If an individual harasses me within 3 months, senior individual, retired or moves on from my organization to another, doesn't mean that he's not a sexual harasser. There is absolutely no question of negotiation. We talk about conciliation, but we talk about conciliation that the woman can go and take a 3-month holiday. Now, it is not clear in the Sexual Harassment Act whether it is a paid holiday or not. Fourth, I can go on about this. It's a law of just many loopholes. We are not supposed to be monetarily benefited from it, but ultimately, when it comes to actually the conclusion of the act, they do talk about compensation. So at one point of time in the act, you're saying, oh, but you can't be monetarily benefited. And then the second you say compensation has to be obviously monetary. So that is endless. That's endless on that end. Now we have Medansh, who says, are there any new proposed amendments for the PoSH Act? And is there a need for amendment for the Act? There is a need for amendment in almost every section of this Act, Medansh. Every section. Why is to named agreement if any person? I don't understand that. Why is to a named aggrieved woman? What if an aggrieved person is a eunuch or a male? Yes, I agree with you. It is. It's very unfortunate, And as it was previously asked, do we have new proposed amendments to this law? Yes. That is why I primarily asked, is it aggrieved woman or is it an aggrieved person? If it was an aggrieved woman also in the definition of today, eunuchs or transgender women or individuals who identify themselves as women will also fall into it. And the definition of that is very, very large after the decriminalization of 377. And that is something that the PoSH Act is bereft of at this point of time. Is there anything else that I can question or that I can answer for all of you? All right, probably not. And I had 1 hour to do that. Now, thank you very, very much for indulging in my banter as far as this act is concerned. Your participation has been very fruitful and is much appreciated. And yes, I am the founder and the managing partner of Kranti Law Offices. We do have my office in CR Park and Tolstoy Mark. We are a women or a diversity inclusive firm. And it is beautiful, and I'm so thankful for everyone at Legal Vidya to have just recognized us or me as someone who could talk about this law, and I wish them the very best. And please do know that if there is anything or any expertise that any of you are in need of, please do reach out to Shikha or Legal Weather for this beautiful initiative that they've taken. And congratulations to everyone who's getting a certificate from it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I believe Paras is not here, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Sakshi, and I,
You're here, darling. I haven't seen you in a while.
yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining this session, ma'am. It
Thank
was a
you.
beautiful session and very interactive, ma'am. I have never seen such an interactive session, to be very honest.
Thank you.
And everyone of the participants also interacted, and it was great to have you here. And thank you to
Thank
all
you.
the participants who have asked such wonderful questions. And thank you, Bhavya, ma'am, for joining this session. And I really look forward to having more sessions with you.
I hope so. I hope so. And I say it again, if there's somebody that you know, now who needs help with it, please do reach out to Shikha and she will know where to find me. All right.
Definitely, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
Congratulations.
you, Bhavya ma'am. It's
To
a very
everyone.
wonderful session we had today. It's a very, very, very wonderful. Thanks to Legal Vidya,
Thank you.
and thank you very much to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Krishna. Thank you so much for the participation. It was very wonderful. It was very nice.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And you may all leave the session now. And please do give feedback on how you like the session.
Please give it to all the babies, and yeah, don't be harsh on me also, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, ma'am.
Ciao. Have a lovely time. Bye-bye.
You too, ma'am. Thank you.